Hi everyone, it's me Darlene. I'm hot. I'm like soaking wet and it's hot again. It was a hot summer and then it started to cool off a little bit. Now it's back to hot and humid and I just cooked. I made meatloaf for my fam, Derek, Skylar, LaShawn, if she's there when she comes over, if there's anything left for her. And for Joe, and I cook for Rocket too. And it was hot in the kitchen doing all that, and then I was so hot that I didn't want to get in Joe's hot SUV and drive a few feet to Derek's apartment. So I walked. It's not far, but in the heat, it just doesn't feel good. Anyway, I made meatloaf, mashed potatoes, corn, and I mashed some carrots, and I didn't know if Derek or Skylar would want that. I took a chance and said, I don't think they will, so I make them for Rocket. So Rocket has a pound of mashed carrots that he eats with his meat. He doesn't have dog food. And so Derek said, oh, I would have liked that. And I said, no. And then he didn't have ketchup for the meatloaf. And he said, I don't usually, he says, but I would have, liked that. And I said, I can go get ketchup, and, back at this apartment. He's like, no. So I felt bad, and I was teasing him, I'm going to lose sleep tonight over carrots and ketchup. Because I do, I think about things, and I dwell on stuff like that. But yes, there's plenty of time for them to have mashed carrots. So I did all that. Before that, Joe and I went to the park, neither one of us realizing how hot it was. We took Rocket to the dog park. There's never a dog there. But Rocket, just likes to sniff everything. Joe didn't even get out of his car. I constantly call it a truck because it's an SUV, and I don't like calling it a car, but it's more of a car, I would say, than a truck. I'm going to start calling it a car. I don't like saying SUV. Car, one syllable. Truck, one syllable. S fucking UV, 5 syllables. So anyway, there's no air in it. We get it like for maybe 2 minutes, and we roll the windows up, and then we say, oh boy, this is nice. And then, 2 minutes later, we're back in the heat. So he stayed in the car, and I got out with Rocket, and I walked around a little bit, and then I went to, first I went to the post office to deliver my packages. Isn't this interesting? And then the park, and then I went to Kroger, and just a horrible, I shouldn't say horrible, it's just the customer service is so bad. I don't know, they don't want to talk to you, look at you, it's all bitchy. It's like, oh my God, I understand feeling that way, because I'm like that the majority of my life. But when I was out there working, I had good customer service skills. I didn't care how I felt. I was nice to people, helpful. That's the way I wanted people to treat me in the work area, and that's how I treat them. And so, yeah, anyway, that was stressful. And then we came home, and then I did the cooking, and now I'm here, and I'm hot. I just did all the dishes. I try to keep up as I go, but all right, I'm here to talk about AA and why Joe and I stopped going, especially to this one meeting in particular, one group. And first of all, I know my patrons and YouTube members, they get daily chats, and they heard me often talk about this one meeting where we could take Rocket. Now, before I get into this story, it's not upsetting to me especially that we can't take Rocket anymore, because we can't take Rocket to any other meeting. He's not invited to be at AA meetings. But this one meeting in particular has it in their bylaws, I don't know, in their rules, that dogs are allowed. They do say that they can, dogs and children, but they can be in the storage closet. How does that work? You put your 3-year-old in a storage closet? I don't know. But I think mainly they mean that for the dogs, but never are dogs in there. I've never seen anybody put a dog. I've been going to that meeting for 2 years with Joe, once or maybe twice a week. And of course we take Rocket. And it's not like just a little dark storage closet. It's like, there's some shelves and stuff, but there's no way Rocket would ever want to go in there alone. He'd be howling because he'd be scared and he wouldn't know where Daddy is or Mama, where's my mommy? So, but he's always welcome there. And so we would go. It's one of the meetings that's the furthest way away from us, the furthest from us, about 40-minute drive and back and forth each way. And it's a late meeting, so we don't get home until almost 10 o'clock and at night. And so, but we do it because we love to do it for Rocket. He loves when he knows that he's there and he knows where to go pee before we go in. He gets his own chair. People all love Rocket. They pat him. They say, "Hi, Rocket." He just loves it all. And then he sleeps during the meeting, and then he's never bothered anyone. And they even sometimes would say when they're announcing stuff, your pets are allowed, your dogs are allowed as long as they're well behaved, and if not, they can go in the storage room, but not Rocket. Like Rocket, he's here with us. It's like he was their mascot, the little mascot of the meeting. And, Joe so loves that. He loves that people love his dog. And, it's just, and other dogs are there, and Rocket doesn't bother the other dogs. He will get up and want to go sniff them, and we ask, can he approach your dog? Because Rocket is not afraid of any dog. He wants to just love any dog, and he's so happy to see dogs. But if they say, well, no, maybe, okay, we say, Rocket, you got to go back on your chair, and he goes on his chair, and he's good with it. So one meeting, I don't know if this has anything to do with the rules, but one meeting, Rocket got off his chair, and he walked over to a couple that I didn't know. They didn't have a dog. And we're like, no, Rocket, come here. And he wanted to go see this woman. And he didn't jump. He didn't put his paws on her. He just went up to her. And, he's just little. She's sitting. And she goes, I'm not one for having dogs in meetings. And she goes, they just don't belong at meetings. And I took Rocket, I picked him up, and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, but, they are allowed here. I said, but, we could go. And I said, I don't want you to be uncomfortable. We could go. And Joe's like, what? And, he can hear me. And this is before the meeting starts, and there's probably maybe 10 people in the room. And I said, she doesn't like having dogs in the meeting. I said, I think we should go. And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. Then the woman goes, you don't have to leave on my account. I'd be uncomfortable if you stay or you leave. And I was like, okay, we'll stay. Because I just thought that was weird. And her husband or her man, I don't know, they were a couple, obviously, but I don't know if they're married. He doesn't say a word. Oh, and then the chairperson said, we don't have issues with dogs being here. Rocket is like so well behaved. He's not going to bother anybody. And so on the way home, though, Joe and I were talking about it. And I said, you watch, there's going to be some trouble because of that woman opened her mouth. And I said, there was a few people that stood up for us and said, oh, my God, Rocket, we all love Rocket. And like, again, there's other dogs that go there. One woman brings 2 dogs at a time. Pretty big dogs. Another woman brings a dog, and she lets him almost be like on the table. He sits on her lap, and he has like his feet on the table and stuff. Rocket has his own chair. We have never taken Rocket to one of the potluck dinners, never, because there's food involved, and there's always a lot of people. We don't want him using a chair that somebody else might have to sit in, but it's a food thing. And we never bring him for that. So he comes to the meetings, there's plenty of chairs, and he sits on his chair, and everybody loves Rocket except that woman. So we went a few more times after that, but they have like a monthly business meeting. So this had to be in July. I had given my car to Skylar July 3, so we're driving Joe's truck with no AC, and it is so incredibly hot, so incredibly hot. And we go early, forgetting that it's one of the days that there's a meeting before the AA meeting, like Heroin Anonymous or something like that. So we can't go in and be cool. So we drive there. We're dripping wet. We're soaking wet. You know, Rocket's also hot. And we sit outside, and there's a few people, and everybody's loving on Rocket. And a few more people come, and somebody didn't know Rocket. A man didn't know Rocket. And he says, what a nice little dog. So there's a new friend there for Rocket. This man likes Rocket too. Rocket sat on his lap. So, you know, Joe's loving it. He's loving all this. And we're outside for about maybe 30 minutes, and it's so hot. And we're just like, can't wait to go in for that other meeting to end so we can go in and be cooled off. And then one of the group member comes up and says, oh, Rocket can't be here. And we're like, what? And he goes, yeah, Rocket can't stay. Or he has to go in the storage closet. And I'm like, well, you're kidding, right? I'm not going to say names. He goes, no, it was, oh, shit. In the group conscience that Rocket not be allowed to be here. Oh, my God, you scared me. I just went out while Joe was getting his meal ready, his meatloaf meal. I decided I'd feed Rocket. So I'm not editing to see where I left off. I want to get through this because I want to talk a little bit about the other reason that I don't like going to AA much anymore. So we're outside. The guy tells us that the group during the business meeting decided now that they're not going to allow dogs. Not specifically just Rocket, but I have a feeling that once people know that rule, the other dog lovers will probably say, we're bringing our dogs. They've been doing it since that meeting started something like 30 years ago. Joe has been going to that meeting off and on over the years for almost 29 years. Joe just celebrated 29 years, and that was one of the ones that he went to at the very beginning. Knows some of these people all those years, and he couldn't believe that we were being told that we couldn't have Rocket. But my feeling is it's okay if they change the rules. Rules are rules. If they decided not to let dogs anymore, come in anymore, that's okay. What I didn't like is we were being told this outside of the meeting. We weren't in the meeting. They should have waited till the meeting started, and then they could have said, we have a new rule in place for those of you blah, blah, blah. You don't know about this now, so, we're just letting you know now, so the next time, we're not going to have dogs, and now you know. So he's telling us this, and I said to him, but okay, for the next time we won't bring him. I said, but we can have him here tonight, right? Because we're just finding out about this. He goes, oh yeah, you can have him here, but he's going to be in the closet. He has to be in the closet. And Joe said, I'm not putting Rocket in that closet. And a storage room. It's like a big closet, okay, with shelves and stuff, supplies and things. And I couldn't believe that they were going to either make us put him in the closet or leave. We were still soaking wet in the heat, and now we had to get into the hot car and drive another 40 minutes in the heat without any coolness in between there. We didn't get a break. We didn't get to sit at the meeting in the cool air for a while. And I was like, I can't believe we have to leave. Oh, no, you don't have to leave. You can put the dog in. I'll tell you after what we should have done. Okay, so we leave, and both of us felt bad about the way we left because we felt like we should have said more and stood up for ourselves more. So we turn around. Joe's like, I'm turning around. I said, okay. he wants to talk to the guy who he knows very well, who started the group 30 years ago. And he's there at every meeting, and he loves Rocket. And when he gets there, I go in first to ask for this man's number. Joe didn't have it, and he wasn't there yet. But we know he comes to almost every meeting. So sure enough, when I went in, I was just going to ask, somebody, can I have so-and-so's number? Because we just want to talk to him because we're going to be leaving. So he pulls up and he gets out, and I tell him, I was like, so-and-so told us that we can't have Rocket here anymore, or that he has to be in the closet. And, we're just really upset that we can't be here just one more night with Rocket. I said, because nobody contacted Joe. I said, everybody knows Joe. Anybody from the meeting or even you could have texted Joe and said, just a heads up, we're not allowing dogs anymore unless they're in the storage closet. And he's just looking at me, and I was like, can we please stay? We're hot. We came all the way here. We're good members. I didn't point it out to him, but we always contribute to the basket for the money. I always bring food for potluck. We do not bring Rocket on potluck night. We speak. We, have our say. Once in a while, we'll just say pass, happy to be here. But for the most part, we contribute to the group. I help as much as I can if stuff needs to be done. And he's like, well, no, the group decided. He says, so yeah, he would have to be in the storage room. And I started crying. I was like, I can't believe that you don't even see how important it is for us to be able to be here for this meeting, so we can explain to people what's going on. And I said, I won't be back. I don't know if Joe will. I said, but I won't be back. And I said, it just makes me really, really sad. It makes me want to cry right now. So I go back to the truck, the car, with, Joe and Rocket are waiting for me. And he saw me talking to this guy, but he didn't come out. And I knew it was probably better that he didn't, because I think he would have been really pissed that he even said, I'm like, why didn't you come out? Because he says, I couldn't go up to him like that, because he said, I didn't know what I would say or do, because he would have probably been really, really mad. I mean, not start a fight or anything, but he was uncomfortable. So we went home. Now, when he just came in, he could hear what I was talking about, and he was napping, so he's always a little off when he just wakes up. And when I shut the camera, I said, yeah, I'm telling them about that we can't bring Rocket to that meeting. I said, but I'm not, naming names or anything like that, because he knows I won't. And he goes, that was so wrong. I said, what, me talking about it? He goes, no. He said, what they did to us and not let us have Rocket. I said, I know, honey. So my biggest thing was that they did not give us the courtesy to be in the meeting. Even if we would have had to leave, I would have liked, and I should have said, and if I could do it over again, I would say, okay, we'll discuss this in the meeting, not outside here by the liquor store. Isn't that funny? It's right next to a liquor store. It's been there for 30 years, that one place. And I would have said, we'll come in. And then I told Joe, I said, we should have said, we're staying for the meeting because we're very hot and we want some water and we don't want to drive back right now, so we want to cool off. And we should have each taken a chair and put it in that little storage closet with the dog and shut the door. I would have loved that, because it would have looked so ridiculous. Now, there are people who have no clue. Not everybody goes to the business meetings. No clue what went on. And I know for a fact, when they said that part and they would have said, Rocket isn't allowed to be here, he'll have to go in the closet, or you will have to both leave, or one of you we're not going to have one of us wait in the car because we have no air conditioning, right? So I know people would have said, let them stay for this meeting. They drove all the way over here. I know some people would have said that, and it would have shown how ridiculous it is that we had to leave after bringing Rocket there weekly for 2 years, except for when Joe and I were split. I didn't go there alone. That's where I gave Joe his 28-year coin for AA. He's going to have 29. He just had his birthday, sobriety birthday, and I don't know now if we're going to even be going anywhere for his birthday. Certainly not there. Okay, so we were very, very sad. Again, they have the right to change the rules. I just didn't like the way they did it. I thought it was very, I don't know, it was just disrespectful. And Joe keeps bringing up, too, that same guy that talked to us and told us this outside, there's parking. We go to the later, the last meeting of the day. That place has meetings, throughout the day, different ones. And nothing is open right next to it. And people park right up to the sidewalk, and then people park in the parking lot behind that. Well, one time there was a space. Members are parked there. There was one space, and I pulled in, and that same guy comes up and says, no, we're not supposed to park here because of the other businesses. And I said, but everybody parks here. He says, yeah, you're not supposed to park here. So I backed up. Joe is still pissed about that. I don't know what that would be against us. Like I said, we're just nice to everybody there. And that's just a member. He's not like running things. Nobody runs things. But the other one that I talked to after, he started the club, that group, I should say. Anyway, so we have not been back. I tell Joe, you can go back. But I said, I'm not going to, because it's not like my favorite group. It's a lot of the, it's always the same people. It's nice. It's okay. It's nice enough. But it's far, and without Rocket, I have no interest in taking that long ride. Rocket just loved it when it was, I was going to the meeting. He seemed to know, and then when we pull into the parking lot, now he knew he was there at the meeting, and people are gonna, be sweet to him and pat him, and he might see other dogs. So I'm jumping all over the place, so I don't know how this is going to be edited, but if the edits are broken and weird, it's because I'm not editing as I go. Oh my God, I was afraid I wasn't recording. All right, so that's that. That was in, I would say, early July, and we've not been back. Joe does say maybe he'll go back one day. He says, but when I do, you can bet your ass I'm going to be talking to them about Rocket not being there. And he said, if I go in there and there's another dog there, he said, I'll be so pissed. I was like, and I have a feeling that the other dogs are there. That was just that other guy, he's just into power trips, the people who like to just say, you can't do this and you can't do that. And, that's all there is to it. So, all right. So then my other issue had come up a while back, and it kind of ruins things for me. But then I said, okay, I just have to go with the flow, because I do like the meetings, because there's times that the meetings are just about life, relationships, things like overthinking, worrying, just not knowing how to have a good and happy sober life. Because there's a difference between being sober and being a dry drunk. A dry drunk is somebody who does not ever work on their reasons why they drank. And you're just like white knuckling it. You're just, okay, I'm not drinking. And you think that's it. And I did that for the longest time. I didn't know there were names for things like that. But for the longest time, I was just satisfied that I wasn't drinking, and I didn't care that I had the life of a hermit and that I did nothing, because I thought it's more important to stay sober so I don't die with all these things, my liver and all. And I didn't want that kind of a death, and just not live a life. Well, now I've realized that I certainly can have a life and be sober, but it takes a while. Some people, sobriety, even if you work on it, you miss it for a long time. I missed it, but because I had taken myself out of that atmosphere and I was just home all the time, I don't know. I think about it way more now, because when you go to AA, that's all everybody's talking about is drinking. But and that's why I had done it back in 2000 when my husband Andy, who died of alcoholism, he was being forced to by work, and we'd leave a meeting. I felt like drinking after all that booze talk, and he did drink. He would just drink, and I didn't want to, because I wanted to set an example for him that we can quit drinking. But he did, he really cut back. But I knew he was drinking when he'd go to the store or whatever. I'm not stupid. I can smell it, things like that. But he definitely cut back, which was nice but then, he just went right back to it after a little while, and it killed him. And so I didn't go to AA. I probably went a handful of times, and then I was never interested in it. So when you go to AA meetings, I don't know how they are all over the country. I do believe that because I'm in the Bible Belt, that a lot of people here are very religious, and a lot of times the meetings turn into more like a Bible study, and I'm not there for that at all. And I don't like the realization of how people just believe something and they can't see that other people believe something else. Why are they wrong and I'm right? And you got to remember that when people say, I believe in God, the key word there is believe. It's a belief. It's not a fact. It's a belief. That's their belief. When I turn the light switch on, as long as there's not, a power outage, I don't say, I believe this lamp will give me light. I know it will. I don't even have to understand how electricity works. Every time I turn it on, light happens. So it's not a belief. It's a fact. It's going to work unless there's a power outage. And then we understand those things, right? So, but I can't get into everything because I could talk about this for years. I don't want to go to Bible studies. I do not like it, and I think it's dangerous when people say you cannot stay sober without God, because it was, like that when I was going with Andy to those few meetings. We were in Texas, and it was a lot of God, and I was like, no, this isn't for me. And I do bring it up at some of the meetings, but I'm not free to talk every meeting about how, you really should give yourself credit. You're not supposed to be giving yourself credit for staying sober. I'm giving myself all the credit. I'm doing it for myself. Nobody's helping me. If you want to give yourself credit for having faith in something, that's okay. Give yourself credit yourself. Give yourself credit that you're making a decision to get that kind of help, because it makes you really feel good. But it's still, you are the one making that decision for yourself. I don't know what's wrong with people who think you're just down here somewhere and you have to be grateful for somebody looking after you. Look after yourself. Give yourself credit. People are taught to be less than. When especially when somebody is saying, you can't do this without God. Many, many people have done it. And when I say, hi, I'm Darlene, I'm an alcoholic, I did it without God. Oh, no. She doesn't know it yet, but she's not going to stay sober. Oh, no, not without God. She doesn't have God. She's gonna suffer. She's gonna fall off the wagon. Okay, well, I've been 25 years. I don't know, maybe I can go another 5 before my lack of belief is gonna get me drunk again. I don't know. And the other thing I don't like about AA is people can be sober. I'm not talking about people who are sober Monday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday they drank the rest of the week, and then they come back and, Monday they're sober again. That's not a long break and falling off the wagon. But there was one man, sober 34 years. 34 years. He fell off the wagon for like a weekend, drank, and now he's starting at day 1. I can't wrap my head around that either. I can't. How about at least say I have 34 years and a relapse, and now I have a day. 34 years and a day. Why do you have to just ignore the fucking 34 years? No, you don't have to ignore it. You can say, I went 34 years. And do you know what he said in the meeting? My faith in God wasn't strong enough. And he showed me by having me fall off the wagon. What is it they call it? Most people don't say that. By I can't remember. There's a way to say it that you drank again without saying drank again. Not fall off the wagon. There's something else. Relapsed. I relapsed. And then I try to say to myself, does he realize what he's saying? That God would play a fucking game like that? I wouldn't want a God like that. Oh, and the other thing is, you can have the God of your understanding, a God of your understanding. The only God I know is the one I was raised to believe in. And I don't want that God on my side at all. I don't like him. He does bad things. And God let him fall off the wagon because he didn't have quite enough faith. That's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. But it's also a way to just, think, oh, I'm just helpless and I fell off the wagon, but it's because God wanted me to. He knows what's best. That's the kind of thing it is. If I ever drink again, I would not say that, oh, wow, I blew it, I ruined it. No, I have choices. I can drink anytime I want, and that's what I tell people who don't go to AA or whatever. Stop worrying about drinking or not drinking. Just say, I'm an adult. As long as I don't drive and kill somebody, even if I have kids, so what if they have a shitty mother or shitty father? A lot of us had shitty parents anyway. Just, at least make sure that they're fed and there's a roof over their head. Not ideal, but it happens even with sober people who never drank a day in their life. They can be shitty ass parents, right? And then just tell yourself, I can drink myself to death if I want to, because you can. Somehow for me, that took away the, I don't know how to explain it. When I would think about never drinking again, that just made me like insane. I can never drink again. I can't even imagine that. So I would say, I can drink myself to death if I want. It doesn't really matter to anybody. It really doesn't. And so I'd be like more relaxed. Yeah, I can drink if I want to. I don't have to tell myself I can never drink again. So at the beginning of my sobriety, that's exactly what I did. If I felt like drinking, I will drink tomorrow. If I still feel like it, I will drink tomorrow. But then, morning would come and, I do feel like drinking. I said I could drink. I'll go one more day. I'll drink tomorrow if I want to. Or I can drink tonight if I change my mind. I just didn't want to drink right now. I just won't do it right this minute. but I can do it anytime I want. So let's not worry about it. Anytime I want to do it, I'll do it. But yeah. Oh yeah, so the... See, I think that's more helpful than saying you're never going to do it unless you believe in God. Because what if you don't believe in God? You're now going to be like, okay, then I can just, like, why bother trying? You can try. You can try and try again. It took me 10 years of trying before I finally gave up, because for 10 years I wanted to, every day I quit, and then every afternoon I didn't quit. I went back to it. But back then I was telling myself, I have to quit and never drink again. And I didn't like that. I wish I would have done it back then, saying, I can drink if I want, all I want, and I can just drink myself to death if I want. But I didn't want to die that way. So, anyway, then when people talk to me, they'll be like, but you know nobody can do it without God, because everybody who's in here believes in God, because that's what you have to do to stay sober. You have to believe in God. And I said, but those who did it without God are all out there. They don't need to come here to be with people who tell them they can't do it without God. They think for real that people are just all drunk out in this world if they don't go to AA. AA helps a lot of people. It's really good for that. A lot of people. But who knows how many other people have quit without going to AA? Many. Me, Derek. There's 2 right there. My brother, one of my brothers, quit. He didn't go to an AA meeting. Many, many people. Anyway, so I'm tired of Bible study. And after a month, we didn't go to any meetings for a whole month. And we were going often. So it was overload for me. We were going almost every day, and some days twice a day, because we weren't going out. I wasn't going out dancing and stuff. We weren't going out doing things. So we would go to like a noon meeting somewhere, and then by that night, I'm like, you know what? I feel like getting out. Do you? Yeah, let's go. Let's go to a meeting. And, I could crochet and, just listen to people and talk. But the last one we went to was another very preachy. And I was like, I can't. It's nice if I could go there and we could just talk about life issues and things like that. And I have no problem if somebody says, my faith gets me through, but don't be spending 10 minutes talking about how nobody can do this without God. And then be like, okay, if you fuck up, because that's what God wants. He was teaching me a lesson. He knows best. It's like, okay, then why didn't you just stay drunk? Because that seemed to be what he wanted you to do all those years, that you cheated on your wife and that you did this, and this was all God's doing. Let him do his thing. Keep doing that. It's just, it just doesn't make sense to me. All right, you guys, I guess that's it. I know a lot of people listening to me don't like that I say that I don't believe those things, but I don't. And the God of my understanding, ain't gonna date that guy. Because that's just, I don't want head games, and there's a lot of head games. Just even as a child, it didn't make sense to me. All those things didn't make sense, and we were taught as Catholics not to really pay much attention to the Bible. They were just stories. It wasn't real. People here believe all this stuff, like word for word, and it's like, why would you even want to believe that children was slaughtered and that was okay? It was a different time back then. It's like, I don't care. Children was slaughtered. It's like, so I just have a hard time with it all, and here I am in the Bible Belt, so I'm in the minority here, especially at AA meetings for sure. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with more soon. Bye.